It's the 1st of November 2022. It's been a lot of rain. Everywhere's very wet, but it's dry this morning and it's not too cold in Ireland. Ground is very wet. You're welcome back. Welcome to my new subscribers. This might appear to be a sort of heavy weather, what I'm coming up with next, but I would ask you to bear with me for a minute. It's called Geopolitical New World Order. Geopolitical New World Order. We're going to look at the history of where we are in the world at the moment. It's 48x. Now, I won't show you any flyers here or any props because I'll talk loud instead. I know that you don't get time to read them. The first thing is that if you look at Germany went into a fit of printing money till they were bringing their wages home in the 1920s in wheelbarrows. And that led to the rise of Hitler, and you know where that ended up. Japan in the 1940s took advantage of the Second World War and thought they could beat America, and they tried to attack America and done all that, and there was a terrible war. They even invaded China. But both Germany and Japan were beaten by the power really of the United States. In the case of both of those countries, the first thing the United States did after the war was try to help and encourage both of these countries to develop industrially with money, advice and help. Their efforts was a resounding success, which proves that the US can be a power for good in the world. It's possible that the 1929 economic crash in America and throughout the world could have been prevented by printing money, but that would have only joined the Germans in the Weimar Republic. That would only postpone the evil day. The point I'm making to you, look at the attitude of the United States. After America, Germany and Japan were two huge powerhouses. Britain was slightly in decline and was going into decline industrially, but Germany and Japan were rising. However, I maintain that the rise of the industry in Germany and Japan was artificial. It was given too much of a boost. And Japan has not been performing well economically in the last 20 years. It's going downhill. I maintain what the Americans did was they geared them up too much. There were situations of children never getting out of their homes, studying for examinations. Totally artificial, concentrated sort of oriental determinism, and children committing suicide and everything like that in Japan. In Germany, it wasn't quite so bad. There is a natural home for industry in Germany because a lot of the United States' industry is German originating, British and German. The Pennsylvania rifle, which was helped to win the War of Independence, was crafted by Jaeger or German craftsmen who emigrated to Pennsylvania and Kentucky. So in the 90s, with the fall of the Soviet Union, you had another similar situation where you would think that the goal of America and Europe would be to try and help both countries and repeat the process in both Japan and in Poland and Eastern Europe, but particularly Poland, which is a rather big country. There was recommendations made by observers, by economists, around that time, around the time of Dick Cheney or earlier than that, after the fall of the Soviet Union, when the Gorbachev era was changing to the Yeltsin era, to give Poland a good bailout, a good leg up. And it took 8 minutes for the White House to agree. It took 8 minutes for the White House to agree to help Poland. The very same recommendation was made in respect of Russia, and it was rejected out of hand. The people that recommended it were told under no circumstances will there be any help given to Russia. Now, the US at the moment has built up a situation which is called hegemony, Hegemony, hegemony. In other words, where they're top dog. And I know that they're in control, you know they're in control of the EU. The EU is dancing to their tune. Now, not all of they do has been wrong, and there was a transition period where it tried to do good. It tried to do good in Bosnia, where Bill Clinton did intervene, where there was the slaughter of people in that area, Bosnia-Herzegovina. Don't pin me down on roughly there. Also, I believe in the case of the war with ISIS, something had to be done. This thing of cutting people's heads off in front of cameras was too far. But Trump was in, and Trump tried to talk. He went into North Korea. No one gave him any credit. Trump tried to make peace with Russia. I heard him myself on his election broadcast. Wouldn't it be nice if we could get along with Russia? Like this was a red rag to the bull. Little did he know, this was stirring the whole American system. Whatever is wrong with them, they hate Russia. As Bob Dylan said in his song, God on Our Side, I've learned to hate the Russians every day of my life. If we must fight them, it's them we must fight. If the war comes, it's them we must fight. And all this, and we have God on our side. Anyway, you know the song. Anyway, Trump tried it. They soon looked for a way to get him out. They invented the hoax. What country was it? Was it the North Korean hoax? The Irish hoax? The Zimbabwean hoax? No, it was the Russian hoax. Because in the mind of the Democratic Party, the CIA, the FBI, and all the enforcement agencies, they have built up their people through the promotion system and the appointment system, where every single one of them are closely aligned to the Democratic Party. You get people like that Schiff fella, Adam Schiff, is that his name? You get people like John Brennan, you get all these mad Democrat supporters, Trump haters, right? Now you see where I'm coming from. I never always said Trump had corners on him. He had. They never could see the wider picture. I meet Irish people who tell me, I don't like Trump because he's anti-women. You know, this is the thing. And all the women being killed at the moment in Ukraine, you can't get through to these people. So the next thing was the COVID come along and they got Trump out. They got Trump out, got him out. Because what happened was they increased the number of votes. Everyone's vote must be counted, and they increased the number of postal votes so that the whole thing became distorted. It wasn't the normal, quiet elections. And I would venture a guess to say, and I hope I'm right in this, the upcoming elections on November the 8th, the congressional elections, they should be a bit better. I don't know, will there be as much room for cheating and messing this time? I hope there isn't. So there was an attitude to Russia. And I was at courses, health and safety courses and economic courses, and courses all over the place, where the example of Russia was used as the way not to go. Oh, they can never do anything right, was the mantra. We know how to run the economy. And a lot of those courses and a lot of those business degrees have an element of anti-Russia, anti-foreign thing in them. The US is the only one who can make up a course and tell us how to run our business. Okay, now they do it fairly well, but that doesn't mean that they should have total control. Now, Russia has said it tapped Liz Truss's phone. I mean, it normally doesn't tell lies. Imagine that. The British Prime Minister, she's only in there a week, her phone was being tapped by the Russians. And they say she texted Blinken in America to tell him they had blown up the North Sea pipeline. And we have to take it. I have made a video saying it was the US, but there's no difference between Britain and America. I mean, it's the one thing, which of them does it, doesn't matter. I am inclined to believe Russia. I've never known them to tell a deliberate lie. Never seen it really happening in that way. The next thing was, you see how the dollar is the reserve currency, and that puts the United States in a privileged position. It's a bit like slavery. You can have other people doing your dirty work for you. It means their children are better looked after. You export your inflation to the whole world. It makes your dollar very powerful, and there are a lot of benefits to it I won't go into here. But anyway, that was all right until they began to weaponize it. In other words, make it into a weapon. It's the reserve currency. And that means that they have control. So the first thing we see of the weaponization was the COVID. The International Monetary Fund said COVID-19 was the most dangerous thing in the world since World War II. Imagine that. Just to repeat, the International Monetary Fund has said that the COVID pandemic was the most dangerous thing for humanity since 2000, since the Second World War. And they did everything they could to exert control. They managed to make us all do things we didn't want to by the rule of law. Now, you see what they did with the COVID. Hungary was entitled to a rebate. The EU printed a load of money. They gave it out to Ireland and other countries they liked. Those countries threw it around them and they were getting jobs done and roads fixed and everything else. But Hungary was denied its money because it didn't appoint judges the way the EU wanted. And that too, there would be American influence in that. So now look what's happening. They're using the weaponization and the sanctions to actually force their will on their cultural Marxist LGBTQ agenda. The progressive left, they want to steer other countries into their mold. They want to steer every country. They have already steered every country in the EU, but now the voters are rejecting it. So having forced the leaders to do their will, the voters are rejecting that will. So you see what's happening in Sweden, in which got rid of the environmental department. You see what's happening in Italy, and possibly more to come. Well, you see the way they try to use the printed money, which has no backing, to coerce Hungary into doing its will. Now, there was a concession on wheat. There was a wheat export arrangement between Russia and the Ukraine and Turkey, and they wouldn't give the wheat to the poor in Africa, and Putin kicked up, and he said it wasn't being fairly distributed, and Putin desperately wants to keep in with African countries because he's building this alternative, and it must include the African countries. So he wanted them to get a fair share. Turned out that the Ukraine was grabbing all the money for the wheat and Russia was getting nothing. Now, I'm not saying they should let Russia export weapons and things, but they could let them export some things, but they won't do it. And now Putin has called the deal off again. Now, I don't think he'll bomb. I don't think Russia will attack wheat going to Africa, but he has withdrawn his searchers. There were searchers for the ships to see weapons were not going in or out. I presume Turkey will do that anyway, but he has withdrawn that. But you see, they're not playing fair. Then we see that the United States is earning profits from the EU misery. They're selling them gas at 5 to 6 times the value that they could buy it of Russia. They're doing everything they can to stop the EU buying its aluminium from Russia, and they want to sell their aluminium to the EU at 5 to 6 to 8 times the price. See, they're just abusing their position. They're bullying their position. Now, Putin has come up with another idea of moving away from the gold standard, which is in place by the LBMA. I sometimes put up the sheets of paper, folks. I apologise. I shouldn't do it because you can't read them in the time, and I understand that. I'm trying to stop it. So Putin has said he's going to bring in an alternative to the gold standard of the LBMA. That's the London Bullion Metals Association standard. They have a manipulated, rigged system for valuing gold. They have rigged it. We'll not go into it here. And he wants to bring out an alternative which will base gold on the fair market value and the value of goods and that it represents. So that's something that's happening. It's going to be known as the Moscow standard. Whether it will take off or not, I don't know. I don't know. Now, folks, on 13 minutes, we have the New World Order, which we only copped on to. I think most people in Ireland and throughout the world are realizing that the United States and the European Union have been building a new world order based on climate change, based on progressive values. I'm not against gay people or anything like that, but extreme LGBTQ and all this. It's only a matter of time since they take the fireplaces out of the homes, and it's only a matter of time when they'll select who people can marry, and they'll have to, families or a man or a woman will have to marry a particular racial profile, and this is all coming down the line at us. They'll never stop. They keep doing it all the time. They keep doing it all the time. You could have a situation where couples with 4 or 5 children will be forced to give up one to couple it with none, or maybe a couple abroad, and you'll find that there'll be a big stamp duty and a big processing conveyancing cost for that. These people are fit for anything. They are fit for anything. I'm not being alarmist on this. This is the fact. Now, the other thing, you can see that the Paris Climate Accord is precious to them, because therein lies the source of their control. If you can control the fuel, you can control the people. And in the days of the Catholic Church, they controlled human reproduction. They controlled conception, contraception, all of the various things. And they went too far with it. I'm not against controls on abortion, but contraception and all that. So up into my lifetime, there was massive controls on all that stuff by the church, and that was to control reproduction. You can control the birth of people, you control them at the very early stages. Whether it was for good reasons or bad, doesn't matter. It just shows you the principle of the thing. Now they're controlling fuel. They're telling us we have to pay carbon taxes on fuel, while they run off trying to secure fuel without any tax, and they use it without any tax. So you see how all this control is there. But what the New World Order wanted was to control every country. To control every country, to be able to tax me here, be able to send the money to keep some of it, and send some of it to a pet project to build some kind of a dam or a windmill over in Zimbabwe or something like that, and call those people over there climate victims, and all of this massive lies. And that would either work or it wouldn't. And it worked for a while in America, and it worked for a while in Canada big time, and it worked for a while in Europe, but it's beginning to shake. But common sense would tell you that none of this stuff is wanted in Russia. None of it is wanted in China. None of it is wanted in India. These people are now moving to pull themselves out of the mess that has been left them by probably imperialist powers or whatever. And I'm not against a wee bit of going abroad and doing things, but at the same time we have to call a spade a spade. Just consider that when Mexico got into severe financial problems during the Clinton period, they got 50 billion of a bailout. Essentially, Mexico had borrowed money from Wall Street and couldn't pay it back, and so America wrote off the debt to 50 billion, which actually went into the pockets of the investors in Wall Street. That was in the 90s. How much did they give to Russia? Zero. They gave nothing. And if they had to give something to Russia, they might have been able to steer it along in a better way. But it's agreed and accepted that the goal of America in this, and indeed Europe, is to extend the North Atlantic Treaty Organization until it surrounds Russia, including up into Georgia, which is on the very underbelly of Russia, to surround it virtually on the south and on the east and even to the northeast with Finland and all that, so that it can never have any independence of its own. And when you look at it like that, is that very fair? Is that very fair? Did anyone try talking? Did anyone try helping them? Did anyone try steering them along like they did Germany and Japan? The answer is no. 50 billion they gave to Mexico, nothing they gave to Russia. Because if Russia had got the money, they could have actually spent it right. Now, we know there's corruption in these places, but there are ways of making sure that you bypass that and the money gets to where it's needed. You could put conditions. And I'm sure the Mexicans didn't all spend it wisely. It's a bit of a mess at the minute too. So the thing about it is they would not help Russia because they hate Russia. And it's every move they can make to destroy Russia. And you can't blame President Putin for kicking up. He mightn't do it in the best way. And they wanted Ukraine. They were going to put Ukraine into NATO. They brought down the 2014 government that was elected and installed their own puppet government, of which Zelensky is the latest version, because they knew if they could get Ukraine in there, get it members of NATO, arm it up, it had good fighters, it would be a tough adversary for Russia to beat. And what Putin did was he jumped in before it got to that. And recently Zelensky has said that he will not become a member of of NATO. That means nothing. I mean, why is Finland joining? Why is Sweden joining? There is really no prospect, no fear really of Russia invading those countries. They should not join. They should keep their neutrality. Ireland is another neutral country, agreed not in the very eye of the storm, but it's a neutral country, and Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil are gradually watering down that too. There was a lot of wisdom in what the Irish government did after it got independence in some ways and in others not. Folks, that's what I'm saying to you. It's hate Russia. The song says I've learned to hate the Russians all the days of my life. And that's what has been put in there. And yet when you speak to a Russian person, they don't seem too much different to us. There has been no effort to negotiate. There's no little bit of talking being done. It's all or nothing. I'm inclined to think that eventually they may maybe beat Putin and they'll weaken themselves in the process. Or you could see the thing settled with Putin keeping some of the Ukraine and the Crimea. This is a fight between values, between the values of a hateful Yankee celebrity, film star, rock star, Green Musk, not to say that he's not that bad, but Bill Gates, all of these people who made it up through the system and now want to stamp their way of thinking on the rest of the world, and they're not going to succeed. The BRICS, Saudi Arabia has turning away. They're rapidly seeing that if the US can impose, if they can stop you getting your dollars out because you did something they don't approve of, there's no point in having your money in there. There are already countries pulling their money out and getting rid of American bonds. If it makes a lot of sense, right? It was a secure, it was a safe, it was a legal home, but it's no longer that. It's no longer a safe place to have money. It's no longer a safe place to have a tech company. We'll see how Musk gets on. It's no longer a place to have free speech online or anything else. Ireland was to bring in certain protection for online without damaging free speech. It didn't do it. So in any event, folks, that's my thinking of it. They hate Russia. We got to understand, the ordinary voter has to understand, we should not hate anybody. We shouldn't hate anybody. We should look at the cause of this and think and act accordingly, and above all, vote accordingly. So if you agree with what I say, give me a thumbs up. If you disagree, give me a thumbs down. And if you wish to subscribe, that's good. And if you disagree with me, say so. What I've after said is probably a very thoughtful video. I put a lot of thought into it. And if you disagree, that's all right too. But look where we are. Look where we are in 2022, facing Armageddon, facing possible nuclear war, with people dying in the Ukraine that had no active part in any of this policy. Folks, good luck. We'll see you. Bye.